Dogs are known for their incredible loyalty, and this story is no exception. It all unfolds in Bahia Blanca, Argentina, where Jesus Hooch had a deep love for animals. His dream was to have a pet of his own, but circumstances kept him from fulfilling this desire in the early stages of his life. When Jesus met his wife, they both shared a fondness for animals. However, living in small apartments restricted them from having pets at the time. Love blossomed between them, and they eventually decided to move in together, but they still faced the same pet restrictions in their affordable apartment. As time went by, they got married, saved diligently, and finally managed to purchase their own home. With a yard of their own, Jesus' childhood dream was finally within reach. They could start considering the addition of a furry family member. Their plan was to settle into their new home for a month or two before welcoming a pet into their lives. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, a dog had escaped from her family's home. She was a Labrador Retriever mix and soon gave birth to puppies while living on the streets. Being friendly to humans, the mother dog taught her puppies to trust people. They would approach passersby for food and belly rubs before scampering away. As the puppies grew older, they ventured in different directions to find food. During one puppy's absence, rescuers found the mother and the rest of the litter and brought them to safety. However, they were unaware that another young pup had been left behind all alone. This young pup found himself alone after returning to the spot where his family used to be. His mother had been scanned for a microchip, leading to her reunion with her family, but this little pup was left to fend for himself. Around the same time, Jesus and his wife settled into their new neighborhood. They hadn't planned on adopting a large dog like the Labrador mix they encountered. They had envisioned a smaller puppy or a cat. However, this dog was different. When they called to him, he responded by wagging his tail and approaching them with politeness. He accepted food gently and enjoyed their affection, even lying on his back to invite belly scratches. Over several days as they settled into their new home, they noticed the dog waiting for them whenever they ventured outside. Jesus couldn't help but fall in love with the dog, even though they had originally planned to wait before getting a pet. He wanted to be respectful of his wife's wishes, but it pained him to leave the dog on the street. One day, about a week after moving into their house, Jesus was returning from work with a sandwich he had kept to feed the dog. To his dismay, he couldn't find the dog anywhere in his usual spot. Worried and disappointed, Jesus drove around the neighborhood searching for the dog, but came up empty-handed. He knew he would worry about the dog all night. When he arrived home, he called his wife, who was in the backyard. She had a surprise for him. The dog was with her, sporting a bow around his neck. She had noticed how much her husband had fallen in love with the dog and had grown fond of him too. This was to be their dog, and it was time for him to come home. She went out to get dog supplies, a dog bed, and essential dog shampoo. That night, they gave the dog a bath and named him Tony. He finally had the forever home he deserved. After his bath, Tony enjoyed a hearty and delicious meal of dog food before settling down on his new dog bed in their room. From that moment on, Tony formed an inseparable bond with Jesus. While Tony adored both of his humans, there was a special connection between him and Jesus. Tony became an integral part of their family, and they treated him with all the love and care he deserved. Born on the streets and living there for months, Tony quickly adapted to being an adored pet, showcasing his playful and mischievous side. He relished fetching the ball, playing with soft toys, and going on daily walks. He even had the chance to walk past the streets where he used to live, knowing that he was returning to a warm and loving home. They provided him with a small swimming pool for the summer months. However, there was one rule Tony's human mother firmly upheld. He couldn't take her spot in bed when she went to sleep. She had her nightly routine and often found Tony occupying her space. While she suspected Tony believed she could sleep on him, he obediently moved when asked. The family had formed a close bond, creating a loving and happy home. In addition to their newfound family member, Jesus had to adapt to the responsibilities of homeownership. They spent their free time and weekends performing chores and tending to their garden, relishing every moment of it. One day, Jesus took a few days off from work to tackle a big task, pruning the trees in their yard. Tony was right there with him, having proven himself trustworthy in the garden. As Jesus worked, he unfortunately experienced a tragic accident. As he cut branches, Disaster struck suddenly, and he began to fall. He landed with a thud, losing consciousness. Lying on the ground, he might have remained there for an extended period. But observant neighbors who witnessed the fall immediately called emergency services. Tony, now devastated and terrified for his beloved owner, pressed himself against Jesus, refusing to leave his side. Paramedics soon arrived and administered care, including fitting Jesus with a neck brace amid concerns that he might have broken his neck. Throughout the examination and treatment, Tony remained faithfully by his side. When they lifted Jesus into the ambulance, Tony tried to join him, but there was no room. Their neighbors stepped in to care for Tony until his family could return. Fortunately, Jesus' injuries were not severe, and he soon reunited with Tony and his wife. The dog could see that his favorite person was okay, and their bond remained unbreakable.